What's up, guys? EJ Stewart here from New Generation Media, here with some big Knicks news. Of course, you guys know I'm a big Knicks fan, and while that news does not necessarily involve Donovan Mitchell, it does impact Donovan Mitchell and those trade negotiations happening between the Jazz and the Knicks. So let's get right to it. The news coming out this Monday night. RJ Barrett, Knicks fourth year player, signs his fourth year rookie extension to stay with the New York Knicks, essentially ending any chances that he'll be a part of a Donovan Mitchell trade. So the news coming from Woj that RJ Barrett had agreed to a 4-year contract worth up to $120 million. The deal includes incentives if he reaches All NBA, if he reaches All-Star games, the usual language you see in rookie extensions. So big deal for RJ Barrett. Shout out to RJ Barrett. I think he's continued to show great progress. He's kind of gone a little under the radar, I think, amongst a lot of league people who watch these NBA players. He's very underrated in my opinion. So worth this contract, worth this investment by the Knicks. But I think for a lot of people, as great as this is for RJ, and I don't necessarily want to just forget about the fact that this is a big deal for RJ Barrett. It's been a lot of interesting talk around what's been going on with the Knicks and Donovan Mitchell. And apparently this deal has big ramifications for the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes that involves the New York Knicks. So Woj saying in this article that because of this, RJ Barrett really likely won't be included in the deal because of a poison pill provision that is in his contract that makes it difficult to match salaries, meaning that the Knicks Jazz trade negotiations regarding Donovan Mitchell have now become, quote, complicated. I put air quotes up, though you cannot see me because you're seeing Donovan Mitchell right now. So look, I think that if you're a New York Knicks fan, I think this is a great night for you. One, you locked up a potential cornerstone player for the next 4 years. But two, I think you're starting to now see Leon Rose take these trade negotiations by the wheel. I think he's taking the wheel. I think he's in the driver's seat. And now you're starting to see the Knicks kind of flex their muscles in these trade negotiations in ways that I don't think we've seen yet. And I know for some people, they say, how do you look at this and say the Knicks have all the leverage? But let's take the Woj reporting at face value. So Woj says that the Knicks had put Barrett in multiple trade scenarios that involved Mitchell and the Jazz, and gave the Jazz a midnight deadline to come up with a deal to acquire RJ Barrett in exchange for Donovan Mitchell. The Jazz were aware that this deadline was there, and that if the deadline was not met, that the Knicks would move forward and sign RJ Barrett to this extension. So what this tells me is the Knicks had trade offers, as Woj said, that include RJ. They have some, I assume, that don't include RJ. And they said, look, we need to figure out now, because we need to sign this extension to this guy that we really want to keep on our team moving forward. If you don't want him, do you want RJ Barrett or not? Let us know. If not, we're going to sign him. And I think this was the Knicks' way of trying to really show how serious the Jazz were about their interest in RJ Barrett. And to me, it shows me the Jazz really weren't that serious. Because if the Jazz were serious, they would have found a way to pull the trigger and make the move for RJ Barrett and give up Donovan Mitchell. I'm assuming that any Knicks trade that included RJ Barrett probably didn't have the kind of draft compensation that the Jazz are looking for. RJ Barrett is a budding young star, and the Knicks will be dumb to give RJ Barrett plus 4 or 5 first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell. That just wouldn't make any sense from the Knicks' standpoint. And I think the Knicks knew that made no sense. So any offer they gave them probably was RJ and maybe 1 pick, maybe 2 picks, maybe 1 unprotected, maybe 1 protected pick. And the Jazz were not trying to see that, because the Jazz want to try to get the treasure trove of picks that they got, similar to the Rudy Gobert deal. But I say that this is the Knicks kind of taking these trade negotiations and kind of taking it, maybe not by the throat, at the very least, by the shoulder, maybe, and maybe in a little comfortable headlock, because now Danny Ainge is in a little bit of a tough spot to me. Now Danny Ainge is the one that's playing defense, because the Knicks have now shown that they are not this crazy, desperate team that will do anything to get Donovan Mitchell. Because that has been some of the narrative, that the Knicks can't afford to let this thing play on much longer and allow another team to jump in and get Donovan Mitchell. Well, guess what? The Knicks are playing that game. They're saying, all right, let's see. Bet. We don't think we have to give up everything we have or the most valuable things we have to get Donovan Mitchell. We want to get him at a price that we feel comfortable with. And if we can't, then we'll just move on with business as usual. And that assumption that some in the media, and I think maybe the Utah Jazz, have had, that the Knicks will be this desperate team that'll do anything to get a star, including giving up their entire future, is now proven to be false, proven to be 100% cap, proven to be a lie. So now if you're Danny Ainge, now you go back to the drawing board and you say, okay, well, now what do we do? Because this notion that Danny Ainge can come into this season with Donovan Mitchell still on the roster is just silly. It's laughable. It doesn't make any sense. And shout out to a lot of these reporters who are doing a great job. Not even trying to do a great job. They are doing a great job. They're giving us the information that they got. And some of this stuff, I know Knicks fans and Jazz fans get very, passionate about their teams, and sometimes it leads to attacking, beat writers for the Knicks or beat writers for the Jazz. I don't like seeing that. That's corny. They're just getting the information they're getting, and they're just telling it to us. But I did see one Jazz reporter today say that the Jazz still held the leverage, because at the end of the day, they could come into the season with Donovan Mitchell. They could trade him to any team they want, even though you would think that they still want to get a lot of value for Donovan Mitchell. They can't just trade him. They're not going to just trade him to anybody, because the whole point, the reason why he hasn't been traded to the Knicks yet is because they haven't met the Jazz's price, allegedly. And the third option was they could shut him down. And that was the one that raises eyebrows. Like, to me, whenever you're following sports and you start hearing reputable, smart people who are plugged in, say outlandish things. And I say people plugged in, I'm not talking about commentary. I'm talking about actual reporters. Say kind of outlandish, preposterous things. Like, that should really raise your eyebrows. Like, to me, a Jazz beat writer saying that Donovan Mitchell being shut down is on the table is insane. It's completely insane. And to take that at face value, you would not be paying attention. Like, to me, that to me looks like a franchise that is now really starting to spin its wheels. Because let's play that out. The Jazz are going to come into this season with Donovan Mitchell on the roster and all those other veterans that they still have to get rid of. Remember, they didn't get rid of Conley. They didn't get rid of Clarkson. They didn't get rid of Bogdanovich. So some of that leftover Quinn Snyder team that they are trying to dismantle are still there. And I think the notion and the thought is they might not be able to get rid of some of those guys until like they get rid of Donovan Mitchell. Like, they may have to be attached to him. Just a Rudy Gay is also on that team. Like some of those guys are kind of attached to Donovan Mitchell, and those guys won't be gone until he's there. So they're gonna take a half broken down team into this season, a season that's supposed to be about rebuilding and, quite frankly, tanking. We all know the Jazz are in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. Like, they're not fooling anybody. Like, they said they were trying to retool around Donovan Mitchell, and then they did nothing to bring in players that would actually help Donovan Mitchell win any games. So now they're like, okay, no, we are trying to trade him. Like, that was ridiculous in itself. So they're like, all right, now we are trying to trade him, and we wanted to see what great offers we got. So if you play this out and you say, okay, they're going to come into the season with Donovan Mitchell on the team, it's preposterous. Danny Ainge is not stupid enough to tank his own tank. If you're going to rebuild, you want to try to start with getting as many high picks as possible. And you can control what your team does in regarding to what kind of draft positions they have. They can't control what the Minnesota Timberwolves do this year. Like, they have all those picks from them, but if the Timberwolves play great, like, the picks are only going to be but so good. You can control how good or bad your picks are. So it wouldn't make sense for the Jazz, if they are committed to a rebuild, which is what they're now saying, to say that, no, we're going to hurt our own rebuild by going into the season with Donovan Mitchell and these other veterans who, while not good enough to win a playoff series and maybe not even make the playoffs, but maybe they'll make the play-in, but like allow that to not give us an opportunity to get a top 3 or 4 pick. He's not going to do that. That doesn't make any basketball sense. If you're going to tear it down, you tear it down complete. You don't tear it down halfway and say, all right, let's go out there with the rest of these pretty good players that will probably win between 39 and 43 games. Like, come on. Let's be smart here. So that's off the table. But then when you hear they may shut down Donovan Mitchell, again, that was one of the comments tonight from one of the Jazz beat writers. That should raise your eyebrows, because that's just, again, insane. First of all, the league, it's terrible for the league if they pulled something like that. You're talking about a player who is in his prime, fully healthy, and you're not going to play him because you didn't get what you wanted in a trade. And it's different than even the Ben Simmons thing, where Simmons didn't want to show up to work. Like, he wasn't showing up. Like, the Sixers were happy to trade him if they got the right pieces, but until then, they were going to play him. This would be different. This would be, no, he's fine with playing, but we're just not going to play him because we don't think that we're getting enough. Sorry, the seller doesn't get to set the market for an asset. The market sets the market. Like, I could say, look, I got some beat up 11s and I want to sell them to you for $600. And that's well and all, but if nobody's going to buy the beat up Jordan 11 for $600, then what am I going to do with them? Am I going to just keep them in my closet? Am I going to just, like you don't, like, at a certain point, you cut your nose off to spite your face. Like, at anybody who actually is trying to give up their asset to get something for it will eventually have to bring their price down, which is where the Jazz are at right now. So my eyebrow raising when I hear stuff like they may shut him down. Like, that's just a ridiculous thing. Like, that's not going to happen. So this notion that the Knicks were this desperate team, a lie. This notion that the Jazz held all the leverage, a lie. I say lie. Those are harsh words. Maybe not lie, but, you know, just turn out to be false. Turn out to be non-accurate. And here we are now. If you're a Knicks fan, I think you should feel pretty good, because you locked up a linchpin, potential, you know, cornerstone type of player. And you learned something about your front office today. You learned that they're not just some desperate clowns that are just going to give up the entire farm for a guy who is an all-star, a legitimately a very good player, but just not someone that's like Kevin Durant and LeBron James. You know, like they're going to make smart moves. They're going to work within their parameters, what they feel comfortable with, and they're not going to outbid themselves. And I think that if you're a Knicks fan, you should feel really good about where your front office is today, because they stared down the barrel of some tough negotiations, and they are not blinking. They are not blinking. I don't think they're going to blink. And I think when this deal gets done, and eventually it will get done, I think it's going to be at a price that will not be catastrophic. I'm not going to say it's not going to be a lot. Anybody who knows me knows I've been praying that Obi Toppin is on in this trade. I don't think they should have to get rid of him, but giving up RJ Barrett would have been catastrophic. That would have been a disaster. You could not do that. And they didn't. And now the word is the Jazz were kind of hoping they would, and they kind of were banking that they would. So the fact that the Knicks even won that battle already tells me they will probably win this war. But that's my take on the RJ Barrett extension. Shout out to RJ. Congrats to him. And we'll continue to follow this Donovan Mitchell saga. It is weird. It has not necessarily been fun to follow. But it is happening. And it is important to all Knicks fans. So that means it's important to me. And it's important to new generation. So we'll continue to follow it, and make sure you stay locked here on New Generation Media. We'll have plenty of content. I know we've been a little bit away for the summer. A lot's been happening behind the scenes for us this summer, but we ain't going nowhere. We're still rocking here. There's still going to be plenty of great content. It's not going to just be me alone. You'll be seeing the guys again, Shamari and Kendall, very soon. So make sure you keep it locked here. And of course, give us a comment in the comment section. Do you guys feel like the Knicks now have the leverage in this Donovan Mitchell trade negotiation with the Jazz, or do you feel like Utah still holds the upper hand? Leave a comment in the comment section. Of course, give us a like in the video, and subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media, for more content, not just sports, but also, of course, superheroes and Star Wars. So that's going to do it for now. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.